Priya, and welcome to Exploring Vampire, where I read about stuff. And like I said, I'm gonna start with this book that I borrowed like a day ago, and it's called Movie Storyboard. And I did read like the intro of it in the library itself, and it's literally they have like the movie names. You guys see, there's like a whole bunch of movies on here, and we're going to be focusing on Vinci, Dali, and Hitchcock. Yeah. So the movies are Gone with the Wind, Spellbound, Psycho, I'm sure everyone knows that, and The Birds. So those are the movies that we're going to be focusing on today, or maybe just one of it, which is Gone with the Wind in 1939. Okay, so preface is all about the storyboards, which I don't know if you guys are very interested, but it's like the very starting to your filmmaking process. So the first thing is you need to have like a story written down. That's like the first thing. The next thing is your storyboard, or like a draft of like what you want in the shot, basically. So it's very important, and I'm gonna read about it now. For the fact that storyboards are, for the most part, executed on pencil and paper, they can seem very ephemeral. Someone tells you about an amazing set of boards they've seen or heard about. They appear to be in a certain archive, but it turns out that's not the case. You find a box, it's empty. You see some storyboards online, but they turn out to be illegal reproductions. The sad truth is that many of the great storyboard artists of Hollywood's golden age have passed away, and most of their work is probably lying in a box in an attic. That's if it survived the studio clear-out of the 1970s, which saw much irreplaceable material consigned to the bin. Very few storyboard artists hold the copyright to their material, and many of the entities involved are now defunct. That is so sad. Storyboards are also, by their very nature, progressive artworks, and artists will go through hundreds of roughs before they get to the final boards. And even then, the board or the scene may be excised from the finished film, or the film may not even be made at all. That's the thing about storyboards. Storyboards are initially the first stage of filmmaking process, and you could have done a storyboard but you didn't really like film it, so you just have an idea that you kind of got out into the world already but not fully finished. The intention with this book is to show as many styles as possible across the widest time frame possible, and hopefully for films that hold an artistic significance in the history of cinema. Although I wanted to avoid concept art, also known as production art, with concept storyboards, which are mostly concerned with scene setting, in the end, there are some examples that straddle the line but were too beautiful to not include. Copyright restrictions mean that the work of art department on a film is not widely circulated to the outside world. This book is an attempt to lift that curtain on their trade craft. Although storyboards are, by their very nature, quick and disposable, they are very much an art form, one which goes much deeper than the strip. They work at very profound level of the filmmaking process. This book includes work by most of the legendary storyboard artists of the film business. Omissions are most likely due to the difficulty in either locating work or obtaining permissions to publish it. Likewise, every effort has been made to find and credit the storyboard artists featured. In a rare event that they are not named, it is because typically more than one artist will work on a film and it is not possible to determine who drew the work in question. There is a fuzzy line between production illustrator, concept artist, and storyboard artist when it comes to an incomplete credit list. I've also tried, where possible, to include examples of the craft from an international perspective. This book clearly isn't a how-to title. I couldn't have done anything at all without the help of people who know how to. So thank you to Dean, Alex, Sarah, Jim for pointing me in the right direction, to the cheerful Tina Mills, Chris Hong at Lucasfilm, and James at American Zoetrope, to Marina. Okay, yeah, you guys get it. He just goes on naming a lot of people. Annie Pressman and everyone else have begged for a favor along the way, and of course to Justin Knight, Adrian, and Xavier. So those are the final bits of people. Archivists at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science have been unflaggingly helpful, in particular Ain Coco, alongside those at the British Film Institute, Albert Palacios and Steve Wilson at the Harry Ransom Center at the University of Texas, and Mr. Masaiko Kumada at Kurosawa Archive. Without the help of Yoku Shimada in Japan, we would not have the beautiful work of Akira Kurosawa, and I am again grateful for her help. Katie Greenwood is an untiring and dedicated picture editor and part responsible for the finished product of this book. But overall, the depth of gratitude is to the artists whose work is represented on these pages. They have their own depths to the past masters, my goodness, which they acknowledge. They helped me enthusiastically and were generous with their time. So in order to thank you, David Alog, and a lot of people. Okay, so introduction. The art department tends to be the unsung hero of a finished film. It is easy to notice a flash camera angle or filter or a fancy costume while still taking for granted the visual fiber of a film and attributing it to the script or direction. A director can come late to a project. A cinematographer can start on a film the week before it shoots, but the art department must be there from the outset, deciding collaboratively, of course, what the film will look like. One of the first people to work on a film is the storyboard artist, charged with providing, at its essence, a blueprint for the finished feature. A storyboard is the first look at a work about to go into production that has hitherto only existed as words. So before it only existed as words, but now it's like something drawn into, or like the idea is out there already. It's a blueprint. It's a very, very good word to explain it. Working closely with the director, storyboard artists translate screenplays or sequences from screenplays into the first vision of what is to come. Occasionally, they see their work directly translated into the screen in the final film. More often, they witness the spirit of it come to life. A storyboard from Heen Hetwog and Ivor Beddold's The Red Shoes sketches. The artist storyboarded the entire 17-minute ballad sequence in Michelle Powell and Emmerich Pressburger's the red shoes. So that is the storyboard. In the early days of the storyboard, from the 1930s and throughout the golden age of Hollywood, the process was widely used but not particularly esteemed as an art. Rather, it was considered a means to an end. When the studios broke up and the lots were taken apart, many valuable storyboards were sacrificed in the clear-out. Random works now survive in archives and in private collections, literally the luck of the draw. On the other hand, the end of the studios also signaled the rise of the director as author. With that, the mechanics of making a film have been pushed aside in favor of an overriding focus on its helmsman. Most directors prefer to talk about the finished product than how it came about. The storyboard artists have remained in the shade. Copyright issues abound, and ownership of the works belongs to the production. Some boards have been seen online, but they're limited and generally unauthorized. The disposable nature of the storyboard artist's work doesn't help their art either. They're quick and they're reactive, and page after page hits the floor. Sequences are cut, ideas aren't used. Many storyboard artists shy away from polished boards, believing that if too much time has been spent on them, the point has been missed. But storyboarding is clearly an art, and one that is rapidly gaining in reputation and recognition, in part helped by the adoption of storyboarding in other industries. Appreciation has grown for the storyboard as an artwork that penetrates much further than what can be seen on the page. For all the difficulties in uncovering forgotten boards, you'll find many passionate advocates for the process and its stars. From William Cameron Menzies through to Harold Michelson, Menta Hubner, Sherman Labby, Alex, and on to the crop of talented professional storyboard artists working in film today. The art of the storyboard has two distinct sides. There's the beauty of the work you'll see on these pages, but that skill is only valid if it can be coupled with the ability to conceive a way for the director to visually discover his three-dimensional film. These artists are a bridge between the director's internal take on the script and the externalized execution of it. They are on board before the wheels of the production even lock into the cogs, and will be gone by the first or second week of shooting. When you look at the payroll, often they are employee number 3 or 4 on a film whose workforce can later grow into hundreds. Storyboard artists take the clues provided in the script and, working in very close collaboration with the director, collate all these ideas in one cartoon strip image that appears magically three-dimensional. Sometimes directors will hand the storyboard artist their rough sketch. Sometimes the artists will come up with this themselves in a rough and refine it until it fills the boards you see on these pages. These will often have written instructions regarding camera angles and dialogue to further pinpoint the scene. These are the cartoon like drawings that they do, and they are really side by side. It's like basically animation before reality. Apart from helping directors clarify what they want to achieve, Storyboards work across all departments to allow the heads to conceive and develop what is required for everything from camera and lighting setups to stunts, prosthetics, CGI, and even set dressing. Even when a director knows precisely what he wants from the get-go, storyboards work as a reminder and a template. When talking about storyboards, however, it's important to draw a line between stick figure sketches on one hand and what is known as production art or concept art on the other. Production art or concept art, which is almost entirely computerized across the industry today and is executed in color in an artistic impression, a scene setting tool to provide visual keys and inspiration. Stick figures are often what a storyboard artist is handed to work with. So I'm just taking a look at these drawings or paintings. They're not stick figures, they're full on. They even have color, you know? You can see it's very detailed. And even the cover of the book, they're not really stick figures per se, they're animation. That said, this book does include some storyboards that could possibly be classified as concept art. In particular, those most unusual boards painted by Akira Kurosawa over a decade for Run, 1985. While the inclusion of a single set concept by John Box for Lawrence of Arabia in 1962 is simply intended to illustrate the craft as practiced in Britain at that time. The other unusual work comes from the British artist Christopher Hobbs, who, working with Derek German, planned Caravaggio in 1986 with a concept storyboard hybrid. Despite clearly being artworks, the sequence from the Red Shoes was also a pure storyboarding process that Powell and Pressburger could insert live-action footage into the animatic as they shot. In fact, storyboards such as Hein Heathroth's for the Red Shoes are most reminiscent of the work of William Cameron Menzies, credited with introducing the storyboard into live-action filmmaking in Gone with the Wind in 1939. Okay. All the other storyboards in this book are pure, prescriptive storyboarding incorporating clear frames. They're not used for every shot, just for those more elaborate sequences that are complicated to execute and perhaps need stunt or special effects work on multiple cameras. They're cost effective and can be shown to backers and studios to ease minds and open wallets. They can also be useful when it comes to jazzing up talking head sequence. Seeing the storyboards for the famous Who's on First sequence for Rain Man 1988. Repeated throughout the Barry Levinson film, started at the very front end of production, storyboards will ultimately be pinned up on a large board on the set during the shooting day, so the entire crew has a visual reference to where they are as it relates to a particular sequence. With movies shot in portions of scenes and out of sequence, this becomes increasingly important during production. The director Terry Gilliam says of his own storyboards, for Brazil and The Adventures of Baron Munchausen in 1985 and 1988. They are the thing I can hang on to as chaos descends around me. With them, I know what I have to do in the shot. I can see through the disorder. As film has become digitalized, there are many more tools available to storyboard artists. And surprisingly, the outside perception is what the storyboard artist now generally uses computer programs to ply his or her trade. In reality, most still prefer to work with pencil and paper, using the old-fashioned trick of photocopying their work to get higher contrast. Nothing, they say, works better when it comes to speed and precision. These drawings are then scanned into a computer, refined and used to form the basis of programs such as Previs, which is a computerized rendering of a film setting, using heavily throughout the industry today, particularly when it comes to effects and large budget productions. So, despite technological advances, the art very much lives on as it always has. Being a storyboard artist requires special talents. The first is clearly an ability to draw, but the second is equally as important, to have good ideas and to be able to communicate and execute them in a close collaborative setting. A good storyboard artist has to be able to see the film in his or her mind's eye, and that includes visualizing how it might be shot. Consequently, an understanding of how the camera works is essential, alongside composition, continuity, and mechanics of effects, shots, and stunt work. Artists need to be able to analyze the script and break it down. It's a unique craft and often a precarious existence, given that storyboard artists are freelance workers with no job security and generally don't have agents. It is believed that storyboarding, as we know it, was developed by the Walt Disney Studios during the early 1930s, although it is fairly certain that some of the larger silent films were storyboarded. No material survives. According to John Kane-Marker's Paper Dreams, the art and artists of Disney storyboards, these first boards evolved from comic book-like sketches that were used as basis for the first cartoon shots, such as Steamboat Willie in 1928, a 7-minute black and white animated short. This marked a debut for Mickey and Minnie Mouse. It was also one of the first animated films with synchronized sound. Disney animator Webb Smith has been credited with the idea of drawing scenes and pinning them up onto a board to tell the story in sequence sometime after he started in Disney's story department in 1930s. Storyboard artists have a special place at the core of animated filmmaking, which tends to be structured differently to live-action work. There are generally no full scripts for animated films. The story and characterization are fleshed out by heads of the story and their storyboard teams before their work goes through to be animated. They have significant responsibilities when it comes to character, plot, and particularly gag development. On a big animated studio feature, up to 30 storyboard artists can work collaboratively on a story crunch. Live-action filmmaking generally uses the service of 2 or 3 storyboard artists, each with their own scenes to develop, scaling up according to the size of the production and amount of stunt work or CGI involved. This book features examples from different styles of animated film, in particular David Russell's storyboards for The revolutionary live-action animated hybrid Who Framed Roger Rabbit in 1988. Nice. Credited with turning around the fortunes of the animated feature. Nick Park's gripping climax for the wrong trousers in 1993 speaks for itself. It's all there on the page. Even more remarkable is the fact that Park produced the entire sequence by himself. So effective was the system dreamed by Webb Smith and his fellow artists at Disney that the other big Hollywood studios were quick to adopt this new idea. By 1939, the giant and expensive Gone with the Wind, the largest and most lavish production Hollywood had yet produced, shot in revolutionary Technicolor and starring Clark Gable and Vivien Leigh, was considered too valuable for producer David O. Selznick to leave to chance. He hired and invented the job description production designer for William Cameron Menzies to design the look of the film. And Menzies storyboarded the key sequence, including the burning of Atlanta, which he also directed. It is thanks to Selznick's determined preservation of his papers that this and the unique visuals for Spellbound in 1945 survived. After the war, storyboarding became an accepted practice, with storyboard artists working within the art departments throughout the golden age of Hollywood. Hollywood art departments in the Big Five studios, Fox, RKO, MGM, Paramount, and Warner's, were enormously powerful. Legend has it that directors merely showed up on set and pointed the camera where they were told. Although it's hard to imagine Frank Capra or Billy Wilder ever obeying the orders of a grapher. Examples of this distinctive Norrish work can be seen on page 36 and to 47, which is quite back. The poignant boards for the magnificent Ambersons in 1942 Orson Welles' lost masterpiece. Although it can be seen, it will never be shown as he intended it. The master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock, wasn't overly fond of suspense when it came to his sets. He relied heavily on the storyboard, so much so that he earned a reputation for never looking through the viewfinder on the day. That is clearly not the case. The boards for his films seen on these pages are an accurate representation of what was shot. Hitchcock's Spellbound is possibly the most famous example of storyboarding as art, with the producer David O. Selznick drafting in the Spanish surrealist Salvador Dali to provide what we would call concept art for the film's significant dream sequences. Hitchcock and Selznick had a continuous relationship. However, William Cameron Menzies worked over those boards. By the time of Psycho in 1960, visual consultant Saul Bass was providing shot-by-shot instructions for the shower sequence. Bass, most famous for his revolutionary work on film credit sequences, also storyboarded scenes from Spartacus and Wild Side Story in 1960. Another great Hollywood art director, Harold Michelson, worked on Hitchcock's The Birds in 1963, and further greats are represented by the work of mentor Hugh Hefner, the king of storyboards. In The Longest Day in 1962, alongside Henry's Bumstead's redolent for To Kill a Mockingbird in 1962. Damn. Okay, so that is it for the first episode of Movie Storyboards, visualizing the action of the world's greatest films. I mentioned a lot about like Walt Disney, and so in Walt Disney is the first ever like person, they had the first ever person to come up with the first ever idea of a storyboard, or even like the idea of a storyboard that kind of came into vision. That's so cool. I will like put up like links, so if you guys like stayed until like now, like I am so fucking grateful. Thank you, and you can come again for like part 2, where I'll probably be talking about like I'll be continuing my reading session about all storyboard artists. Yeah. So yeah, let me just show you guys a bunch of pictures, and that is the storyboard like at Disney, Walt Disney. This is so cool. Can you imagine like a bunch of people just sitting, staring at drawings and trying to visualize like the entire scene coming together? That's anime. That's basically anime. I think you guys know this anime. I don't know if you guys like are thinking about the same anime that I am thinking about. I'll put it up as well. So yeah, thank you for sticking with me till now. In the next episodes, we'll go further into about these storyboard artists like Hitchcock and Selznick, Dali. For some reason, Dali is like my favorite artist in the world. I really love surrealism, so I really like Dali. He's like the king of surrealism. So thank you guys for staying with me and listening to this painful small thing that can kind of put a coin. Okay, so hope you guys have a really nice day, and yeah, you can check out like more stuff in my channel. That's just me reading and also talking about art, mostly about art, or going to exhibitions and talking about it and showing you guys what I saw there. So yeah, make sure you like go down there and subscribe, or like see my other videos and hit the like button, because like why not, right? Why not? And comment what you think about this video. Like I hope it kind of was like soothing, and hope it was fun to hang out with me, listen to me read, and just talk about stuff. So yeah, I might put up like some upcoming exhibitions right up like here. Just overall, so you guys can see and maybe go to them, because like apparently a lot of people don't know like all the art exhibition around Singapore. So I will be really glad to like spread it. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this session, and hope to see you guys again.